well, welcome back to the When I Heard This podcast. My name is Nate Robinson. I'm here with Pastor Joseph Tillman, MDiv, soon to be D-Man. How are you doing today, sir?
Man, I'm doing well. I got some stuff done for my dissertation.
Cool.
Got it submitted, turned in.
Homework.
Homework, yes. That was a lot of homework.
Yes.
100 pages of homework. So, anyways, but it's that not all, but that part is submitted. So,
what is left?
Feeling good. The actual research part, and then my analysis of that.
You didn't do any research before you wrote 100 pages?
I did. Okay, I did a literary review research.
Oh, now you have to
but
do
not to go speak with like
field research.
Right.
Okay.
Correct.
Sweet.
Yes. So
that sucks.
No, it's part of it, man. Part of it.
Cool.
Yeah. So
well, today we're talking about immigration.
We are.
Yep. Go to Patreon, $5. Like, subscribe, share, comment, follow, download. You can follow the podcast on Facebook and Instagram at When I Heard This Podcast, and next to locals at When I Heard This. Like, subscribe, share, comment, follow, download, and do all those other things twice.
Sure.
Website, t-shirts, ring the notification bell, and tell everyone you tell everyone that you know that we're a show.
Everybody.
Cool.
Yeah.
So immigration.
Mm-hmm.
What is immigration? And before you answer,
right,
every single one of these first question clips has been like 30 seconds long.
Right. I need to drag this one out. That's what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay. All right. I'll do my best, but I'm probably not going to help you a lot.
Drag it out like they're taking long to build the wall. Drag it out that long.
Okay. Well, we're going to need a wall, or we're going to discuss a wall. Something.
Walls.
All right. So Webster defines immigration as traveling into a country for the purpose of permanent residence there. Okay. And so therefore an immigrant would be a person who's coming to another country to live there.
And this has something to do with Jesus.
Yes.
Okay.
Because as we'll get to later on, some people think Jesus was an immigrant.
From heaven.
While on earth.
To earth.
Or while on earth.
Okay. Does the Bible talk about immigration?
Yeah, it does. In some ways. So in Exodus 22:21, it says, "You must not exploit a resident alien or oppress him, since you were resident aliens in the land of Egypt." So this is the Lord speaking to Moses to be able to communicate this to the Israelites, that because they had been at one time living in Egypt, that now that they're out of Egypt, that individuals that come and join or come to live in Israel shouldn't be mistreated in the way that the Israelites were mistreated in Egypt.
This feels like a Bible verse for a different episode.
Because we're talking about aliens?
No.
Oh, slavery.
No. Well, that too.
Okay. I'm not coming up with a lot of ones.
And Israel.
Yes, and Israel.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And immigration.
Right.
And Israel.
And Israel.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll get to that.
Okay.
Not today. All right. So in Leviticus 19, 33 through 34, it says that when an alien resides with you in your land, you must not oppress him. You will regard the alien who resides with you as the native born among you. You are to love him as yourself, for you are aliens in the land of Egypt. I am the Lord your God. And I know it's using the word alien there. It means, one that's not an Israelite.
You must allow them to phone home.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Or allow them to be with you and to not be oppressed. How about that?
Okay.
All right. And so actually 36 times in the Old Testament, the scriptures are addressing this issue of how to handle foreigners amongst the Israelites.
Okay.
And this is all about what happens when they come to live in their land. So, but one thing that's important to note is that once they were there in Israel, they were expected to abide by Israel's laws.
Okay.
And so in Numbers 15, 29 through 30, it says, "You are to have the same law for the person who acts in error, whether he is an Israelite or an alien who resides among you. But the person who acts defiantly, whether native or resident alien, blasphemes the Lord, that person is to be cut off from his people. He will certainly be cut off because he has despised the Lord's word and broken his command. His guilt remains on him.
So any illegal alien with the Jews, if they committed any, if they disobeyed any law that the Israelites had, then they should be sent away.
Correct.
And that's the consequence, no exceptions.
Yeah. Well, because the phrasing in there is that the person who acts defiantly by blaspheming the Lord.
Oh.
Yeah. So it's speaking toward that. But if you go back up to the verse before that, you would have the same law for the person who acts in error, whether he is an Israelite or an alien who resides among you. And so, in other words, if there's one that is with you that is not, an Israelite, but they're breaking the law, whatever the punishment for that law was, right, then that same punishment is applicable to the foreigner who's with them.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's the gist of really what the Old Testament has to say about...
I probably wouldn't have immigrated to Israel back then.
You don't think so?
Pretty oppressive.
You think
system of law.
Even though it tells them not to oppress people?
Well, the law in itself was.
Okay. A little too restrictive for you.
God said, let me do the oppressing. You guys sit down.
That's not. I mean, but there are 613 laws.
Yeah, that's too many.
How many laws do you think we have in our country?
1 billion.
Right. I wonder how many laws we have that contradict each other.
1 billion?
That's fair.
I mean, it's true.
Yeah. That's, okay. Yeah, I don't know that number, but okay. Yeah.
Did you know that I think it's like 8 that everyone in America unknowingly commits 8 or violates 8 laws a day?
Yeah, well, there's so many laws.
Or something like that.
There's so many laws that are on the books.
Yeah.
That's been there for, centuries.
There's laws about
decades and decades.
Putting pies in windows, and you can't do that.
I know.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's. I remember my wife, she was reading all these ridiculous laws for our kids, like as part of homeschool, like that these different states have these just, they're so out of date laws, but they're there. They're still in the books. So you're right. Yeah, we're just walking around just.
The longer we exist, the more oppressed we are, no matter who's in government. Because they just keep creating laws that contradict each other.
Right.
And whoever they want to suppress, they can suppress.
Well,
from one law or another.
Yeah, that's seems to be the way we're headed, my man. Yeah. So,
anarchy.
Yeah. So that's pretty much what the Old Testament says about immigration. And there's really not much in regards to the New Testament at all.
Okay.
Yeah.
Should I, as a person who claims to be a Christian, have a point of view on immigration that is different from people who are not Christian?
Okay. Well, I don't know if I'd necessarily it's just going to be completely different than people who are not Christian. Because I think people who are not Christian, there's a plethora of viewpoints that are out there as well,
right,
in regards to immigration. So you may end up finding yourself aligning with one, but I mean, hopefully not just because you're trying to align with someone else, but because that's where the Bible kind of leads you to.
Okay.
And so I think there is a perspective for the Christian. So if, so you take what's there in Leviticus 19 that I read just a little bit ago. And so where it speaks about, okay, if you've got a foreigner, he's residing there in your land, do not oppress him. Okay.
Okay.
And it goes on to say, you are to love him as yourself, for you are aliens in the land of Egypt, And we understand this is very specific to the Israel as a nation that was being formed, right?
Okay.
But I think the principle still applies that we should love. So there should be love. There should be mercy. And then that kind of plays itself out, even in Matthew 25, for example, where Jesus says, truly I tell you, whatever you did for one of the least of these brothers and sisters of mine, you did for me. And that's when Jesus is speaking about, hey, if you've seen someone if you see someone that's without clothes, give them clothes. If you see someone who is thirsty, give them something to drink. If you see someone who is hungry, give them something to eat. Okay. And so he's saying, be merciful to people who need mercy. Okay. But I do think there's the other side of that, which is like the justice aspect. And so in Romans 13.
So now we're okay.
Yeah. So
all right.
Let me bring us a New Testament,
Here
Romans 13, and maybe create a combination of Leviticus 19, Matthew 25, and Romans 13. So in Romans 13, it says, let everyone submit to the governing authorities, since there is no authority except from God, and the authorities that exist are instituted by God.
Okay.
So then, the one who resists the authority is opposing God's command, and those who oppose it will bring judgment on themselves. For rulers are not a terror they're not a terror to good conduct, but to bad. Do you want to be unafraid of the one in authority? Do what is good, and you will have its approval. For it is God's servant for your good. But if you do wrong, be afraid, because it does not carry the sword for no reason. For it is God's servant, an avenger that brings wrath on the one who does wrong. And so in Romans 13, it's establishing the fact that, all right, God has allowed there to be governing authorities on the earth. Okay. And the authorities there are there to keep law. Okay. That's what they're supposed to be there for.
Okay.
All right. And so therefore laws should be kept. And so I think when we talk about immigration, I think there's a way to hold mercy and love with justice and law.
Okay.
And what I mean by that is I think the wrong perspective would be, all right, we're just going to, love means just to welcome everybody and to just come on in. All right. And that would be quote unquote loving.
Right.
But I don't think that's what love means. It just, it means to care for. It does mean to take care of those who are the least of these. But at the same time, there's the legal part of this, right? So, but if they're coming in illegally, they're breaking laws. So law needs to be upheld. Because if there's no law being upheld, then you do have, like you said earlier, you just have anarchy, right? So how do we uphold law and have mercy simultaneously in this issue of immigration?
Lovingly sniping everyone that tries to cross our border. With kindness.
You're gonna kill him. You're gonna kill him with kindness.
Yes.
Okay. I don't think that's the right way to go about this. So no.
An A kindness 47. That was terrible.
That's one way to say it without us getting completely censored. All right. So I think that there's a way to acknowledge the fact that there are people that are trying to come, like if we're talking about America specifically, right? They're trying to come to America to have a better quality of life. Okay?
I was thinking about this episode before we started.
That's good.
Yesterday. Oh, yeah, it is. Wow. Okay. I guess I got to take it if I'm going to give it. But I was thinking about this episode before we started, and I was like, is this topic gonna is this episode gonna last longer than the next few months?
Oh,
and
yeah,
it's been going on forever.
Yeah,
like everyone likes it here. I mean, except for
people who don't.
Yeah, except for the worst. Some
you'll say it.
Communists.
Yeah. Except
they reluctantly stay in the hopes that they can make the place communist.
It's, conforming enough. We're all Marxists.
But so I was wondering about that, and it seems like this is going to be a thing that lasts forever.
I think so, and I think that
So I was like, is this relevant? Right. Like, it's going to be relevant for a really long time.
Yeah. And unless we do completely become a communist country, then at that point, not so much. Right. But
then we'll be going.
Right. Then we'll be the ones leaving.
Yeah.
So, but, I do think that, so there are people who are wanting to come to better to have a better quality of life.
Mm.
All right. And I get that. And I mean, I was just talking to someone just within the last month from Venezuela. And, you know, Venezuela. And, you know, and because where they're fleeing and, you know, where they're fleeing is just, it's terrible conditions down there. Mm-hmm. So the idea of being able to come here and not have to live in that type of country is beyond appealing to
communism.
Them. Right. And that's what communism does. Mm-hmm. Right. And so they would be thrilled to get out. I mean, and they have already left Venezuela and are in another country, but are looking to possibly come here as well. But I understand there's people who want to come here. Like I have friends who have come here, whether it's because they wanted to come to America for work or for job, or whether it was because they were actually having to flee the country they were in because of, political threat to their family. And so therefore they had to leave and but I think there's a way, I mean, we have systems that are set up to allow people to come into America for asylum, to be able to have, refugees that are brought here that go through the intentional process as well. And I think as a Christian, when we're looking at the idea of immigration, we always want to look at people or those that are wanting to immigrate here. They are people. They are image bearers of God. So I want to look at them as people, but then I also want to be able to say, but I am a citizen of heaven and a citizen of this country, right? My citizenship in heaven will always trump my citizenship here in this country. But being a citizen here in this country, we do have laws that we have to abide by. And so, therefore, if you're breaking law to enter this country, like, I think that's part of that Romans 13, that's not okay. That we have to uphold law. So then how do we create, and we already have a legal way to come into this country from another country. And I think,
and that takes 10 years.
It can take a long time.
Yeah.
I mean, that's reality. It can. And so, I mean, I know someone who's been here, and my gosh, it took their family almost a decade. Yeah. So it can take a long time.
Okay. So love people that are here.
Correct. Yeah.
As aliens.
Yeah. For those that are here, whether they're legal or illegal, they need to, we still have to love them.
Okay.
Yeah.
Also, they need to follow our laws. Correct. If they want to stay. Mm-hmm. And our laws we're allowed to have laws no matter what they are in dealing with illegal immigration. And we as Christians should follow the law. Correct.
I mean, for example,
unless the law tells me to snipe them at the border.
Thankfully, the law's not telling you to snipe them at the border.
Yeah.
But as Christians, we should want laws to allow for a civilized country. And I know you've seen the footage of, police basically saying we can't do anything because they're illegals. We cannot actually enforce our laws on them because we are a sanctuary city. And they've taken that idea of sanctuary city so far that they can actually commit crimes and not be charged. That's crazy. That's way overstepping the bounds.
But isn't that the law?
And I think this is where it goes back to Israel, to consistency. Israel had laws that had to be applied to everyone there.
Okay. So we're not following the law we're not following the Bible, the example set in the Bible.
The principles of the Bible, right.
If we as governments are not applying our laws equally.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's not Christian.
Well, I think it goes against at least it goes against the biblical principles that we find in Leviticus and in Numbers and even Ezekiel about how to deal with foreigners that are in our land. So if you're allowing people to break law and it just be okay, no, that's not okay.
So if you create a law,
it needs to go.
Laws to break the law,
right?
Then that's not Christian.
Yes, we don't need to have laws that allow people to break laws.
Okay.
Yeah.
Even if we're supposed to love them because they're aliens.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, loving them, but loving them doesn't always go, attaboy.
Right. But we should also love the people that are here already.
Absolutely.
Okay. And that's the point of equal distribution of law.
Right. And I do think that actually is a really great point.
Okay.
Because I think sometimes what I hear from even some of my own Christian friends is a desire to want to so badly love the immigrant, they forget to love their actual own neighbor who's been there for their whole life.
Right.
Yeah. I think it's actually a great point.
Okay, so I've heard this argument before, but I've never really understood what the actual argument is.
Okay.
And so this is all you.
Okay.
But people say that Jesus was an immigrant.
Uh-huh.
So we should love everyone all the time and let them go wherever they want and do whatever they want and not have any laws and kill people.
Okay.
Because Jesus was an immigrant.
Because Jesus was an immigrant. Right.
I took that too far. If you're just watching clips, if you watch the last clip, that would make sense in context, but it doesn't make sense here, so forget I said anything. But anyway, Jesus was an immigrant, and therefore we should just do whatever.
Okay.
And let everyone be happy wherever they want to be happy.
Right. Just no borders anywhere, because they're only just imaginary lines.
Right. That we made up. Yeah.
So just let people just walk wherever they want to walk.
Just like we made everything else up ever. And we, hold to those things. But these things are also made up. So
forget it. All right. Yeah. So
what's the deal?
Yeah. So they're deriving this from a story that we find in Matthew 2. Okay. And it's a story of Jesus. I don't say story. It's a real story. It's about Jesus. And so in Matthew 2, verse 11.
Real stories are stories too.
Yes, they are. Mm-hmm. And so in Matthew 2, you have the wise men that are coming to Jesus after he has been born. Okay. And so in verse 11, it says, entering the house, they saw the child with Mary, his mother, and falling to their knees, they worshipped him. Then they opened their treasures and presented him with gifts, gold, frankincense, and myrrh. And being warned in a dream not to go back to Herod, they returned to their own country by another route. And then after they were gone, an angel of the Lord appeared to Joseph in a dream, saying, get up, take the child and his mother, flee to Egypt, and stay there until I tell you. For Herod is about to search for the child to kill him. So he got up, took the child and his mother during the night, and escaped to Egypt. He stayed there until Herod's death, so that what was spoken by the Lord through the prophet might be fulfilled. Out of Egypt I called my son. And so the idea of Jesus being an immigrant was that when Jesus was around 2 years old, wise men come, they come across Herod asking where, where Messiah is, King of the Jews is. Yeah. Well, there's just, you just don't see, there's just no story between basically his birth and this.
Well, it all happens at the same time in the Christmas play.
Yeah.
At church.
Let's just say the Christmas play gets some things wrong sometimes.
I feel like we've talked about other things that got wrong before too.
Yeah. The nativity scene is not always accurate. Let's put it that way. All right. Anyway. Yeah. Basically,
what a bunch of BS.
Not all of it.
This whole religion's a joke.
My daughter is here. She'd look at you and go, your face is a joke. And so, but, no, it's not all a joke. All right.
It's all lies.
No.
Everything they told us.
Well, that may be true. Sometimes people tell us things that just aren't true. So that could be true. The Bible itself, no, not a lie. Bible's
fine.
Bible's good. All right. So, yeah, we have basically Jesus' birth, Jesus going to the temple, and then this. So that's kind of what we've got.
Okay.
And so, all right, wise men come, they bring their gifts. Joseph gets a dream, go to Egypt. They, Mary, Joseph, and Jesus pack up, and they head out for Egypt. And so the idea of Jesus being an immigrant is, well, they had to flee from where they were, and they had to, and they went to Egypt. And if they did not immigrate to Egypt, then Jesus would have been killed. Okay. So he was an immigrant because they immigrated to Egypt.
Okay.
That's So that's where they're deriving it from.
But Jesus was 2.
Yeah.
So he had no choice.
Right. So you could say his family. But I mean, he was still an immigrant, right? His family, they're all going.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Okay. So how do we get from that to let everybody in?
Okay. Yeah. So, and I think that becomes part of the issue, right? Like, all right. So the question for me is actually, was Jesus an actual immigrant?
Okay.
Because yes, in one way, yes, because he's going from Galilee to Egypt. Okay. So in one way, yes, but
we're
still all in the Roman Empire.
Okay. So they were traveling between states.
Bingo.
Oh, gotcha.
It's actually more like I had to flee within my own country.
Right. To a different part of my own country. Mm-hmm. Okay.
Right.
Like everyone who's leaving California for other places because there's too many illegal immigrants there.
Yeah. I mean, it's not. Well, we also know it's not just because there's too many illegal immigrants. But
right.
I mean, but that is. I mean, it's part of it, right?
It's because of fires.
Yeah. Well, fires, economy.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that thing, mm-hmm. Right? Cost of living.
Yeah.
All that stuff.
Living sucks.
Yeah.
In California.
But just in California. Yeah.
I mean, they always say they like it, but you can tell they don't like it.
Well, my theory is all the people that I know now who used to live in California, who've come back, who not come back, but who moved here, and were like, "Oh my gosh, this exists."
But you know what? We have people who used to live in California and still live in California that watch us every once in a while,
right?
And I think it's great there.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
If you make over $1 million a year, but
right. Within stipulations.
Yeah.
So in one way, yes, Jesus was. I think probably a more accurate phrase would be he was displaced. Right. His family, they did have to flee because of persecution.
They went to Florida.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah. And so, so you're going to have some people that really going to say, no, he was an immigrant. He went from Galilee to Egypt. Others are going to go, well, but not really, because it was all part of the Roman Empire. So it wasn't like he went there illegally. He went there completely legal, right?
Okay.
It was all within the same territory. And what's interesting to me too is Jesus's family, when they're going from Galilee to Egypt, yes, they're having to flee because of the threat of persecution. Like that was real. Okay. But they did not leave as needy people.
Okay.
Because who had just visited them? The wise men?
Oh yeah.
And the wise men brought with them what?
Bunch of rich,
gold,
expensive stuff,
and frankincense and myrrh.
But all that was Jesus's, and he was only 2. Right. So his parents couldn't
touch it. It was like a trust.
Take it from him. Yeah.
No, I think we can very easily understand that they actually were given the provision they needed to go to Egypt.
Oh, okay. That was the point of those gifts.
It's interesting because we never hear of those gifts again. Right. And so my guess is that was what enabled them to make the journey.
Gotcha.
To pay for everything, to be able to make, to have a living when they get there. And I'm sure Joseph as a carpenter worked once he was in Egypt.
How come I've never heard of frankincense except in this story ever?
I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, it's all throughout Scripture. Yeah. But you're like, whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So, but they were able to use these, all the different gifts to barter, to trade, to pay, to, it just allowed them
for actual hotel rooms.
Right. Could have used that beforehand. But anyway, no, it was because they were out of room. They could have, anyway.
Yeah.
All right. So I think that, I think the argument that Jesus was an immigrant, therefore we need to allow just all immigrants in, I think that's a horrible reading of this passage.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that's the main point.
Yeah. And I think that's it. I think we can say Jesus had to flee. I think we could say Jesus was a refugee, if you were, within his own his own territory of the Roman Empire.
Mm-hmm. So Herod was like a governor.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, he was referred to, even Herod was referred to as like the king of the Jews, right? And so I
thought Jesus was king of the Jews.
Jesus is the real king of the Jews.
Okay.
But Herod acted as the king of the Jews.
Okay.
Because he was there working with the Roman Empire.
Who's the current king of the Jews?
Jesus.
Do you think that the church as a whole in America is getting this whole immigration into America thing correct?
Oh, wow. I think the church is completely splintered in their thought processes on it, on their perspectives.
Okay.
So I don't think there is like this one view of the church that the church has in America. I think that I think there's the one side again that's like all mercy.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's we need to welcome all. We don't need borders, and when they get here, we need to provide for their immediate needs of food and clothing and shelter.
Okay.
Okay. And we open up all of our public services to them, schools, hospitals, all that. So I think there's that's one side, and that's especially present in the justice movement of the church. That is
the social
justice
movement?
Yeah, the social justice movement of the church that sees people like we would be referred to as like colonizers, right? Mm-hmm. And therefore, and so because we make up the majority of this country, we're colonizers, all that stuff. We're actually the oppressors. The immigrants are all oppressed. We need to make sure that we allow the immigrants in, and that's doing the justice for them.
Okay.
So I think there's one side. I think there's the other side that's like build a wall, don't let anyone in ever. Mm-hmm. No more asylum, no more refugees, no more immigrants. If they can't speak English, they don't need to be here. Like,
okay. Yeah.
Treat them less than
nothing
people. Yeah. Like, I think you have two extremes. Mm-hmm. And then I think there's just a lot of Christians, to be honest with you, that have no idea what to think about it.
I honestly didn't know what the Christian thing to think about this was before we started talking about it.
Yeah. And I'm not sure most Christians have thought about it through a Christian biblical worldview.
Yeah. I'd never done that.
I think most people look at it through just a political,
right,
lens of, hey, I'm a citizen of this country. What do I think we should do to handle this as a citizen of this country?
Okay.
And so, and then again, I think you do have some that are like, hey, always got to love, always going to be merciful. Mm. And so I just, that's why I say, I think the church is probably very fractured over this issue. And I know the church is very fractured over this issue.
Well, it seems like the church shouldn't be fractured over this issue because less and less people are going inside church. So it seems like they should be pretty good at not letting people come inside our country.
Because they're not letting them inside their own churches?
Yeah.
Therefore, we shouldn't let them in the country?
Right.
Right.
If they had that same view with the border, then we'd be good. Or not good.
Or not good, whatever.
Depending on which...
however you think it should go. Yeah, and that's why I don't think we're handling it well. I do think that there's the heavy mercy side, there's the heavy justice side, and I think somewhere in the middle of all that is the answer.
Cool opinions.
Yeah, man.
All right, well, let me just ask you then for a new question.
All right.
What's your opinion on America's southern border topic from a Christian
perspective,
Bible man perspective?
Okay. So I think that as a Christian, when I look at the southern border, it's just an absolute hot mess, right? I think we all acknowledge that, or we should at least. We should at least acknowledge that it's a hot mess. I do think the balance of mercy and justice is that there are those that actually do need to find a way to get into the country legally. And
because they're facing oppression,
because they're facing
places?
Oppression, they're facing famine. There's There's real issues. Okay.
And that happens everywhere, right?
What do you mean?
Like all over at least the Western countries, they let people in from famine and war and stuff.
Yeah, they're having to figure out how to do. Like Europe has been. I mean, they've had a huge immigration crisis.
Right.
For I guess going on a decade now.
But before the crisis, they were all letting Ukraine people come in there because of the war and stuff like that.
Yeah. There's always been this. Yeah, figuring out how to handle, especially individuals that are fleeing those types of countries, and so I do think we need to have a way for people to get in, but we've got to stop the illegal for me as a Christian. I think we have got to stop the illegal immigration.
Okay.
Because one, it's just we use the word illegal for a reason. It's breaking law.
Okay, so you think it's Christian to say that people just cannot come in here?
I think it's the loving
into
thing,
your country.
Right? The loving thing to do and I think you brought up a great point earlier about it's not only how do we love them, it's how do we love our own people, right?
Okay.
And so the loving thing for our own people is to ensure that the people that are coming in are vetted. Like, we should know who's coming into this country. We should have to find out later on, oh, by the way, they were once in jail in their own country for sexual assault, right? Like, we should have to find out that way because most of the people coming in aren't criminals. Okay.
Okay.
And so I don't want to label everyone like.
I thought they were all criminals.
No.
Every single one of them. I thought everyone everywhere in the world besides America was criminals.
Is that what you were taught growing up?
That's what I was taught.
Everybody.
That's what I saw.
That's everybody.
That's what I saw it on television.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Wow. I'm hoping we get a better global picture or a better picture of the world. No, not everyone's a criminal besides us.
All right. Well.
Yeah. All right.
Learn something new every day.
There you go. Oh Lord. And so, so I think that, we look at the immigrants and yes, we have mercy and compassion on them, but we have mercy and compassion in our own country as well. And so as a Christian, I'm for closed borders. Okay.
No matter how we choose to do that.
If we need to build a wall, build a wall.
Okay.
Okay. I think
what about snipers on top of the wall?
No, we don't need snipers on top of the wall.
Okay.
You don't have to just kill them. You can capture them and just take them back, right? So, I'm
just trying to figure out the Christian line here.
I know you are.
Yeah.
Yeah. But
how violent can we get on the southern border?
I don't think violence is the answer.
All right.
I do think that stopping illegal immigration actually allows for, our country is so overwhelmed with illegal immigrants and trying to figure out how to deal with them. We can't even begin to really process well those that are actually wanting to come in this country to offer something good and valid or just to come and make a better life for themselves.
Okay.
Like I don't begrudge anyone who genuinely wants to come to America to make a better life for themselves. Like I don't begrudge anyone for that.
Yeah.
But we can't just take everybody who says that's the reason we're wanting to come. Like we need to know who they are. They need to be vetted. Like there's a way to do this. And so, so I think that for me, that's what I guess I would like to see. And for those that are already here, we have to be merciful. But I don't think the answer is to allow them to live off of government funds either.
Because we have to be merciful to our own people.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. We're already, and we've done this to ourselves in regards to our own national debt.
And this is how you think, because we're talking about this in a time when it's a big issue.
Sure.
I think it's the number 2 issue in the country.
Yeah, probably so, especially leading up to the election.
Number 1.
Yeah.
And so, but you're saying all of these principles forever.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
All of these I can take with me to
right. And I understand
to whichever country I am a citizen of.
Yeah. Yes, because the country has a responsibility to take care of her own citizens.
Okay.
That is actually our government's, the government's greatest responsibility is to care for our own citizens.
Are there Bible verses in the Bible that say that government should do that?
Well, for me, I mean, just even going back to that Romans 13 passage that we read earlier, that the idea of government is to, hey, if there's individuals have bad conduct or that are breaking law, the government has the power to do something about that.
Okay.
And so I think that is, for me, the issue, so if the government is protecting us, is there to serve us, like it says in Romans 13, is there to be a servant for us, then I think that's the perspective we need to have of it. And that the government's role is to protect the citizens. Part of that is to know who's coming into the country at this point. And I understand, I get it. So many of our own ancestors came here as immigrants, right? And some legally, some not legally. I get that. And you go back to the earliest part, man, we just came and conquered, right? And so
hell yeah. Colonizer.
Oh, what a great reel that's going to be. Okay, so, oh God, and so I do think that there's a perspective, there's a way the way for Christians to be able to engage in this topic and engage in this issue with mercy and with justice. We need to have laws. If we find out, hey, there are illegal immigrants in here, I'm saying have mercy on them by not oppressing them, by not being abusive toward them. But hey, comes back that you have a criminal record. See ya.
Yeah.
I don't not because we're trying to be mean to you, but we're trying to be loving and caring for the rest of the citizenship.
Right.
And so I think that's to me, a no-brainer. And yeah. And so, and if you've been here for years and years and years and you've been faithful and you work, there's no criminal issue, all that stuff. Hey, let's give you a green card. And I don't know if we need, but if you came here illegally, maybe we don't need to give you citizenship, Right. I think that can be a whole nother discussion, topic of who deserves to be a citizen, who doesn't deserve to be a citizen. If you came here illegally, should you ever become a citizen, or those kind of things. But I do think if you came here, you're already here, you've been here for years, you've raised your family here, hey, we'll give you a green card, and, that way you're not labeled as an illegal anymore. Because there are a lot of illegal immigrants who've done amazing things here for our country. Great. But at this point, we're reaching a massive saturation point where we just can't keep letting people to come in, and we never should have allowed it to begin with.
It was just too many people too fast.
Absolutely. But it's been an ongoing, it was building. Yeah. It's been building. We never should have allowed it. We should have never allowed it to happen from jump. There always should have been a legal way for people to come into our country. I mean, there has been, but that should have been the only way, I guess is what I'm saying. So,
well, we need to do an episode about conquest.
Okay.
At some point.
Yeah.
And whether all this colonizing and killing other nations for their land and all that stuff is good.
Yeah. And how do we look at that and view it?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's a fair topic.
Because we're all immigrants. And now we're talking about other ones.
Yes.
And I don't know if we're justified in doing this.
Well, I think the thing is now we are citizens. We are here.
Yeah.
And we have to find the best path from here forward.
Yeah.
And so therefore we need to lovingly close our border, allow for there to be a legal process for people to come and be citizens here in this country, or to migrate here. That's to be refugees here, to seek asylum here. All of those things need to be able to happen in proper channels. So
assuming I am loving and nice and clothing giving and food giving to immigrants that are here in this country as a Christian. Does my stance on the politics and whichever side I come down on that matter for me being a Christian?
It's not a salvific issue. No.
Okay.
But so it has no bearing on your own salvation or those kind of things. But I do think there's a concerning ethical issue in regards to immigration.
Okay.
And so, because like if you have an open border, no restrictions, what that leads to is there's a ton of issues it leads to. One being human and sex trafficking. It's already bad enough. It's already present in the immigration the illegal immigration that's happening now. And so I think that there's got to be, if you have an open border, that's only going to get worse. And
so you're saying it's already happening without an open border.
Correct.
But if we open the border up, that just
oh my gosh, it'll be like the floodgates have opened.
Bunch more customers on the other side of that border.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think the amount of human trafficking and sex trafficking that's going to happen, the amount of people smuggled into this country for that, or smuggled out of this country for that, is going to be horrible.
What is human trafficking?
It's human trafficking is just, it's literally the movement of, it's enslaving a human.
Is it? Does it have to be that though?
There's what's called an indirect human trafficking.
Okay.
And so like your act of direct trafficking would be you literally kidnap someone, you literally enslave them, and you're taking them.
Okay. But is, if I lived somewhere and I paid someone to smuggle me through somewhere.
Okay.
Is that human trafficking?
No, human trafficking is always when someone is coerced or taken by force and taken away. Okay. But so like if you're paying someone to take you across a border, for example, that's referred to as human smuggling.
Okay.
Yeah.
So they smuggled me into the country.
Correct.
Instead of trafficked me into the country.
Correct.
Okay.
There you go.
So when I buy a plane ticket, the pilot didn't smuggle, or he didn't traffic me to wherever I'm going.
No.
Okay.
If you bought a plane ticket, the pilot also didn't smuggle you to where you were going.
Okay.
He just simply provided the transportation to take you there.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's very similar to smuggling.
No, one's legal and one's usually
not. What if
not.
I hid? Would that be smuggling?
That'd be smuggling yourself.
What if I bought a plane ticket and hid?
If you're already on the plane.
What if I stay in the bathroom the whole time?
Well,
would that be me getting smuggled?
No, that'd be you just stuck in a bathroom the whole time.
Okay.
That sounds stupid.
All right, whatever. Keep going.
Yeah, and so, and then the other issues of drugs, coming in and out of the country,
right,
without check. You have criminal activity, you have terrorists. I mean, I just think that having just a carte blanche, just open border is just a horrible idea that actually goes against Christian values and Christian virtues. And
because we're intentionally not doing something that would stop all of the problems of having an open border.
Yeah, we're not loving toward our own citizens, and we're actually not loving toward the potential individuals that are going to be harmed through the criminal activity, the drugs, the human and sex trafficking.
Okay.
Yeah, so I think there's just I just don't see where any of that is loving and kind and caring, and definitely not like Jesus, to be honest with you.
Okay.
So,
even though he smuggled himself over the border to Egypt.
He did not smuggle himself. They went to the border and were like...
He was smuggled. He was two.
He wasn't even kidnapped.
That was trafficking.
No. He's literally with his mom and dad. Like, literally. So
he had no choice.
Well, no, he didn't.
Was two.
Not as a 2-year-old. You're right. He did not have a choice.
Smuggled.
No. Whatever. I'm not doing this with you right now. So, so I believe that as Christians, that we should be all for immigration that's legal.
Okay.
And that that's where we kind of need to draw the line, I think.
Okay.
Is against illegal immigration.
Okay, but legal could mean a billion things.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
So legal...
Like by legally applying to enter into this country, to migrate to this country, and whether that, again, is for livelihood purposes, whether that is for you're seeking safety because you're fleeing a war-torn country. You need asylum.
We should legally let some people come in for specific reasons.
Yeah. Yes.
That we think are good reasons.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
That Jesus thinks are good reasons.
Yes.
All right.
Yeah. And so, like I've several just dear friends that their families had to flee a country and move here to the United States because of political persecution. And so, and I thank God that they were able to go through a system to seek asylum, to be placed here, because we do have these little refugee towns throughout the country. And thank God they were able to come and do it the right way, get here, and that to provide a place of safety for them.
Refugees are people fleeing hard things?
Correct.
Or war or something like that?
Yeah, okay. Yeah, war or threat of violence, whatever it may be. And so thank God they were able to be here and be raised here and go to school here and be incredible contributors to our society and to our country, their families as well. And so I think my heart is for people that are looking for a better place to be. I mean, I've spent enough time in third world countries to know how I get it, that sometimes people want to leave where they're at to seek something that they think is better for their family. Okay. Like my heart goes out for that. It's just, how do we go about doing that in the right way?
Okay.
Yeah.
And America's the best.
America has a lot of issues and a lot of problems, but in regards to the ability to make a living, it's not a bad place to be.
All right.
Yeah. Whether it's making a living, have safety, those kind of things. This is not a bad country at all.
All right. So sum it up for me. What should I think about immigration?
So to sum it up, I think that we should,
as a Christian,
I think we should be able to combine Leviticus 19 with treating people that are here as immigrants with kindness and mercy and love. We should be able to do that and care for them. But
legal or illegal?
Legal or illegal.
Okay.
But we also, Romans 13, there needs to be law established. So therefore we need to be able to say, hey, if you cross the border illegally, we are sending you back across that border.
Okay.
And I'm not,
because you broke our law
because
by
you
coming
broke
here
our
illegally.
law. Correct.
All right.
And I know this opens up a whole other can of worms of mass deportation and those kind of things, but I'm not saying that we need to actually do a mass deportation of everybody. But I am saying that, hey, if you broke a law coming in, or if you're an illegal, you break a law while you're here, we take you back over the border.
Okay.
Yeah. I think that we've got to find ways to have justice and mercy simultaneously. And that needs to be merciful and loving and justice to the immigrants and to our own citizens here in the country. And that's because the citizens here in this country are made in the image of God as well. And I don't think we need to forget that part.
So that's the Jesus-y way to look at it.
For me, that's my biblical perspective of it. When I read scripture, that's what I come to.
We'll see what happens.
Okay.
It's either going to be really bad or really bad.
No in between.
No matter what happens.
No matter what happens, just bad.
Kind of, yeah.
That's what it feels like right now?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anarchy.
A wall.
Yeah. Yep. I think everything needs walls.
Walls are good.
Yeah. Time to break the fourth wall. Well, this has been the When I Heard This Podcast. You can follow the podcast on Facebook and Instagram at When I Heard This Podcast, and X and locals at When I Heard This. Like, subscribe, share, comment, follow, download. Tell everyone that you know about the show. Ring the notification bell, and website has t-shirts. You can follow me on Facebook and Instagram at Nate Robinsoff, and you can follow Joseph on Instagram at
Rev Joe T.
This has been the When I Heard This Podcast, and we'll see you guys next time.
Bye.